Lonely rancher posted for a farmhand, but a girl with no shoes arrived and stayed forever. The sun baked the cracked earth of Wyoming's rolling plains, the wind whispering through the tall grass like a ghost of all that had been lost. John McAllister stood on the porch of his aging ranch house, weathered hands gripping a faded flyer he'd posted 2 weeks ago, farmhand needed. Room and meals provided. He didn't expect much. At 63, alone and widowed for over a decade, John's days passed in silence, save for the creak of barn doors and the lowing of cattle. He didn't want company, he needed help. His knees ached, and the work never stopped. But when the knock came at dusk, nothing could have prepared him for who stood on the other side. She was just a girl. 17, maybe 18. Clothes dust-covered and far too thin for the cooling fall winds. Her hair, tangled and sun-bleached, framed a face that looked like it had seen more winters than springs. But what struck John most were her bare feet, calloused, bruised, and trembling on the porch boards. "Name's Ellie," she said simply. "I can work. Just need a place to stay." John opened his mouth to say no. She was too young, too small. This wasn't a place for barefoot girls who belonged in school, not in a barn. But something in her eyes stopped him, the kind of look you get from animals that have known too much hunger, too much fear. So instead, he nodded. The first days were quiet. Ellie barely spoke. She cleaned stalls before sunrise, fed the animals, patched fences with a focus that bordered on obsessive. She worked harder than any hand John had hired in years. He noticed she ate fast, like someone who wasn't used to full plates. She never asked for anything, not boots, not gloves, not even a proper coat when the mornings turned frosty. One night, after seeing her limp into the barn, he left a pair of his late wife's old boots outside her door. He didn't say a word, and neither did she, but the next morning, she was wearing them. Weeks passed. The ranch, once heavy with silence, started to feel different. Lighter, somehow. Ellie sang to the horses when she brushed them, soft, humming tunes John hadn't heard in years. She started cooking in the evenings, quietly turning leftovers into stews that filled the kitchen with warmth. Then one Saturday, as John watched from the porch, she raced a colt through the fields barefoot, laughing, arms stretched wide like wings. It was the first time he saw her smile. Curiosity eventually won out. One evening, while washing up after dinner, John asked, "Where are you from, Ellie?" She paused, shoulders tensing. "Nowhere really. Foster homes. A few shelters. Left the last one when the manager tried to take something I wouldn't give." Silence hung in the room like fog. John felt something tighten in his chest. He thought of his own daughter, lost in a car crash 10 years back. The pain of that hole in his life had hardened him, made him keep people at arm's length. But Ellie was filling that silence, not replacing his daughter, but stitching something back together he thought would stay broken forever. That winter, Ellie caught pneumonia. She collapsed in the barn, feverish and gasping. John, in a panic, wrapped her in blankets and drove through the snow for an hour to the nearest clinic. He sat at her bedside 3 days straight. When she finally woke, dazed and whispering, she said, "Didn't think anyone would come for me." John took her hand. "Well, you're wrong, kid." When spring returned, so did Ellie's strength. She planted a vegetable garden by the kitchen. Painted the chicken coop bright blue. She even built a birdhouse, hanging it outside John's window, so you don't wake up to just silence anymore. And one warm April evening, she handed him a letter, handwritten, sealed. "It's for the judge," she said. "To start the adoption. If you want that." John blinked. His throat burned. "You want me to be your father?" She shrugged, eyes shining. "You already are." The paperwork went through in June. Neighbors whispered, what was an old man doing adopting a near-grown girl? But John didn't care. They didn't see what he saw. The barefoot girl who arrived with nothing gave him everything he didn't know he was missing: purpose, laughter, family. Years later, people still talked about Ellie McAllister, the rancher's daughter who turned the place around. But John knew the real story wasn't about a ranch saved, it was about two broken souls who, by sheer chance and silent need, found healing in each other. Sometimes, love doesn't knock loud. Sometimes it just arrives, barefoot on your porch, asking for a chance. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life forever.